So this is the self-development with tactics book. So, hello and welcome back to the next episode of the Self-Development with Tactics podcast. And I'm back here again with a new book. So actually yesterday we unfortunately didn't finish the last book, or the other book that I'm going through at the moment, which is Top of Mind by John Hull, or whatever he is pronounced. It's a pretty great book, so I would definitely invite you and just suggest you that you check out the other episodes as well. But yeah, as I said, we're going ahead with another book today, which is, and you might be able to see it, I do not know how possible it is for you actually, but we're actually going through The Rich Employee from James Altucher, or whatever he's called. I actually just recently watched one of his interviews, or an interview on Impact Theory, which is basically the channel of Tom Bilyeu. Some years ago, or even I think some weeks ago, it was actually called Impact Theory as well, but now it's just kind of changed to Tom Bilyeu. So I think he just wants to make a personal brand out of it and want to benefit more from it than he's just doing right now. This is just how I'm thinking about it. But yeah, the thing is, and just a quick story to kind of introduce the book to you. James Altucher has written quite a lot of books. I think it's actually 18 or something like this. So kind of the same thing, or kind of the same amount as Seth Godin actually wrote. But I've always been a little bit, skeptical about his works, because I looked up his net worth, which is unfortunately maybe one of the factors that I kind of choose the books that I'm reading on. Yes. Which shouldn't be the case, definitely, because it doesn't have to be like that people who just made a lot of money have a lot of knowledge in terms of the self-development or self-help genre. The thing is, if you're just really willing to talk about or read about things like marketing, things like economics, things like entrepreneurship, I think you should totally just learn something from someone that is actually in this place you want to be. Which means that you shouldn't just read an entrepreneurial book from somebody who is actually not an entrepreneur himself. So it wouldn't make any sense. But I'm quite always a little bit skeptical about things that I'm not familiar with and people that I quite do not know. The thing is, after I've just seen James Altucher's interview with Tom Bilyeu, I was kind of feeling, okay, he has some knowledge. He is a person who just, built up a lot of companies. I think it's actually 21 companies, which is totally insane. A lot of people who might have more money than him actually do have more, didn't build as much companies as he did. And therefore I quite thought and it pretty much changed my mind. And this is always something good and always something great to just come up if you do just think about certain things like in such a skeptical way, or such a bad way even, that sometimes it just comes up that you completely change your mind and your whole perspective, and then you pretty much just maybe start to enjoy what you have always been kind of disliking. But I always just like his covers, to be honest. They're always kind of well done. They have their own style, and I think this is just something that you can totally see on all of his books. I think they're all just designed like this, and I kind of like it. It's not something you see that often, and so therefore it is quite nice. The problem is with book covers and design in general, there are a lot of trends, and often you can just see the whole fucking shit all the fucking time, which is then something for a graphic designer especially, something that's getting quite boring, and therefore just seeing something new or something old and new, because this is definitely a design that's not kind of 2019, even though you just have to say, okay, this book isn't from 2019 either. But yeah, so I think we will go ahead. I hope the settings are okay like this. The text is a little bit quite near to the border, but I think it's okay for you. The problem is if I'm making it smaller, you might not be able to read it But yeah, so the book in 3 sentences, maybe, or actually do it like this and turn on Chrome so that you might see me even a little bit better. Yeah. So the book in 3 sentences. The first one is focus on 1 improvement or 1% improvements every day. I think these terms will just come up a lot in this book, so therefore I won't just prepare it now, I will just talk about it in the now, because I do think, because they are just so often in the book and they will just appear so often in the book, I am sorry that I might haven't turned off my notifications, which might have led to some very, very fucking loud noises, and I'm fucking sorry for that. But yeah, the second one is become an entreployee, which is, I think, totally something great if I'm just thinking about the correct thing. And the last one is we are transforming into an idea economy, which is, I think, totally something that he's talking about quite often. Basically, he wants to say, at my point of view, or I just think, or I just assume, that he just wants to say, okay, ideas are something that's pretty fucking important in nowadays life and in nowadays business world, and whatever you're talking about, I think ideas in general are pretty important. And do just seeing that as I opened the other browser, the fucking fan started to just be so loud again. I hope you can see it. I hope you can see it. Definitely can see it. And I hope you can hear it in the podcast especially. Yeah. Maybe I'll close it down again to see whether this is kind of helping and expanding this one. Can I? Yeah. That's great like this. I hope the recording is still on a go. Yeah, it seems to be like this. So I actually, this was just a fucking great move of mine. I just kind of changed the theme the program or the software has that I'm using for recording the actual video, that is always open there so that I can actually see that everything is okay. Now it's quite hard to see everything, especially some bars that are kind of color on white, which is totally not that great on this fucking screen in front of me. But yeah, I won't just lose such a lot of time because I'm quite feared. Not quite feared, but it might not be that great if I'm just not quite able to go through such a short book in this big amount of time quite. So the 5 big ideas. The first one is the daily practice is how we take the stone of ourselves, all of the places where we feel blocked, and turn those stones into works of art. And nothing can replace your ability to innovate, have a vision, and then execute on that vision in the most efficient way possible. The third one is the average multimillionaire has 14 different sources of income. Definitely great to hear that again, because I actually just, I quite often just talk about income streams and that certain people or certain just groups of people have certain amounts of income streams. But it's also always some kind of different thing that people are saying. So Alltalk is definitely saying 14. A lot of people say 6. Some other people say 5 and 4. This is just something you just have to look out to, that people are always just saying what they are thinking about and what they think is actually the truth. But yeah. The fourth one is being an entrepreneur is not about taking risk. It's about eliminating all risk. Being an entrepreneur or having multiple sources of income is ultimately safer than having a job, but only if you use a job to get rid of all the risks. Just being an entrepreneur without having multiple sources of income, without first taking care of the risks, is suicide. Totally a great view on that. I do think that a lot of people, especially nowadays life and especially nowadays society, think that entrepreneurship is something so great and it's so easy, and everybody wants to have their own company rather than just being employed at a company and actually making the same amount of money. Even though I still think, which is totally something that's not that good, a lot of people just still think about money quite often. They still think about money as being something that's so important, something that actually makes them happy, which, definitely is not. If you follow me, or if you have been following me for a little bit a longer time, you definitely know that I have quite a great opinion about money and money in terms of happiness, or money correlated to happiness. So I do think money can make happy to just some degree, definitely not fully, because there's such a lot of other factors like, your friends, your family, how your physical health is, how your mental health is, and such a lot of other things. But I do just think that if you have some kind of money, and if you can just buy some kind of things that you just enjoy generally, this might just make you happier than if you have no money. It always depends though on your perspective and where you've been just grown up. If you're just really grown up in just something like Africa, maybe generalizing it is something bad, but in very, very poor regions, you might be thinking about money like something that you need to survive rather than something that makes you happy. Even though I do just think that a lot of people down there, or just in the East, or wherever you're just thinking about, do have a lot of dreams that they could pursue with money. But I think so in the first world country, the persons or the people do just have a quite different opinion about money and a quite different view of money. But yeah. And the fifth and the last one is, the only thing you have control over is your mindset, your habits, and the choices you make internally about how you're going to deal with a situation. And that's totally right, and this is totally something that you hear quite often. I'm sorry. A lot of people talk about this. It is actually also something that I'm quite being bored of, or I quite got bored of, because so much people talk about it. I do just get now that it is important, yeah, because I've read it so fucking often, but it's really important. Just to really be honest, it is really important to just have a great mindset and think about things in especially a positive way, I would say, because thinking about everything in a negative way and being such a negative person in general, I think just leads to negative life experiences and in general a negative life, because if you're only focusing on the negative things, what do you expect to get? Do you really expect to get, the positive things if you're just really only focusing on the negative? I think this is some kind of, it's not kind of good equation. And the rich employee summary. Every day focus on 1% improvement of what I call the daily practice, which is, I think, just the least amount of, or the least percentage you can improve on something, whether it's your meditation practice. So it's all about your daily practices, or your daily practice, which I assume is quite what you're quite doing all day long, whether it's just meditating that you're focusing on right now, if it's working out, if it's actually your work, if it's whatever, or no, I think it's actually all the things that you're doing each day, I think. And definitely going for this 1% is a good idea, because 1% isn't that much. And just growing 1% every day, every single fucking day for a month, for 2 months, for a year, for 10 years, I think will definitely lead to you just being just really improved and just really, pretty near to your goal that you just once set for you. The second one is avoid spending time with people who bring you down, and spend more time with people you love and who love you. And that's definitely true. Always just spending time with people that are so fucking negative is very crucial for just being unhappy, because it totally, and this was quite something that I've never been thinking about as quite something that's so important, because I was always like, people are just talking and this doesn't make any sense, and they just talk and, whatever, because I always thought like, I do have my own thoughts, I do just think on my own, I do have my own life, and I have certain friends that might not have the same exact mindset as I'm having, and maybe doing some things that I'm totally not doing and I will never do, because I think it's not dumb, but it's not just really smart as well. just those things. Because I always thought about it like, I won't do these things, and I just won't be just some kind of influenced by them, only because they're just some kind of different than I am. The thing is, I totally recognized something completely different quite this year. I totally do just get influenced by the behavior of the people that are around me, and just really their mood, what they talk about, in which way they talk, what they think about, what topics they talk about, and so on and so on. So therefore, I think it's really, really important to really be around people that are actually just good for you. Maybe, you can't be sure of every aspect or for every aspect of, someone's life. Sometimes they are negative. Sometimes they may have another opinion than you are having. That's totally okay, I think. But I think in the big picture, in the macro, you should totally be sure that you're hanging around with people who may have, or who do just have the same goals as you're having, or just the same worldviews. Maybe it's even good to have people with a different worldview on the same topic, and so on. But please never stay with people that are really, really negative, because this will totally influence your positivity, totally influence maybe your neutrality, whatever. But it definitely just makes you some kind of a negative person as well, even though you might not think about it as actually true, like I have always been. The daily practice is how we take the stone of ourselves, all of the places where we feel blocked, and turn those stones into works of art. Okay. So I do think it's not like quite all the things that you're doing, but rather the things that's some kind of a habit for you specifically. So just for me, it would be meditating and doing my shit, so doing the podcasts and doing the other social media posts and so on. And for another person, it might be like, I don't know, having just boxing training every single day and so on and so on. The one thing, actually, I did a book summary, or did a few episodes about the book summary of The One Thing by Gary Keller. Yeah, I'm just very impressed by myself, to be honest, that I actually kind of managed to really recap his name. Because even though I'm just really talking about these people just quite a lot of time, if it just, comparing it to my whole day, and if you're comparing it to the whole day or the whole time I'm spending quite talking or thinking about certain things, because most of the time, I'm just really being honest, I quite only think about rather just doing posts, doing the podcast, what I could do to improve the podcasts, what I could do to just learn more, what I could do to maybe accelerate what I want to achieve. Most of the time I do just come to the conclusion that I should be a little bit more patient. But I've been speaking about this, I think in yesterday's episode as well, or the episode before could also be true. I don't know. So the one thing that can't be outsourced is ideas. We are now transforming for the first time into a pure idea economy. I do just still think that you could definitely outsource ideas by just hiring creative people and people who just think all day long, making or creating some kind of an idea for you and or for future businesses you might have. Which totally doesn't quite mean that they won't just do it the same way. And I think if you're just doing this, which I think is actually possible, you do just have to be sure that you're paying them correctly. You're just giving them as much as they want, or what they actually want, so that they actually aren't using their ideas on their own. Actually give the ideas to your competition, because why not? This is, but do not, I'm just thinking about like giving them something and whatever. It shouldn't be money, not necessarily, and just really do not put them under pressure. Even though they're working for you, maybe actually often it's quite the other way around, that actually you are working for your employees and not like, vice versa. But yeah, so nothing can replace your ability to innovate, have a vision, and then execute on that vision in the most efficient way possible. The average multimillionaire has 14 different sources of income. Nothing ever works out when you are at the whims of others. It doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur or an employee. Once someone is bribing or bribing. Maybe look it up. I didn't just bribing. I think it's bribing. It's bribing. So someone is bribing you to do something. A salary is a form of bribery. If you are only doing the work for the money and not for the meaning, then you become a prisoner. And I think that's totally true. Because you just have to read it again so that I'm not talking about some shit. Because I do just really believe in the fact that you should actually do something that you actually like. Because at my point of view, and this is totally something that I kind of got influenced by Gary Vee a lot which is totally just something, or just doing something that you like, something that you love, something that you're passionate about. Because it totally makes sense what he's always saying, what he's always kind of preaching even, that there might be someone who just really loves what you are doing and what you are actually not loving at this point in time, and he and or she is just so good at this thing that he or she will just surpass you, and you won't ever be the best person on the market for this particular thing you might be doing right now, because you don't like it, because you might not work as hard as someone who is actually liking it. You won't work as hard as someone who is actually passionate about it, and you definitely won't work as hard as someone that is actually loving the work that you are doing, but you aren't loving it. And I think this is one of the points. On the other hand, is totally that you're just really being unhappy if you're just totally doing something all day long that you're not passionate about, that is not challenging you, additional maybe to that. And there are a lot of factors, though. Also, I think money is a big factor. Unfortunately, for a lot of people, it's just such a factor that they would actually just, really work on things they don't like just because of the money to buy shit they actually don't need. But this is quite exactly what I think the author wants to say, and the author of this great book summary also wants to say, is that this is quite the thing. If you're only working for the salary, then it is just something like, you're pretty much a prisoner. Because you just, it just makes you unhappy. It will just make you unhappy. Totally. If you're just working for the salary, just expecting that the salary and the money you're getting will actually make you happy, but it's not. And this is actually something that you might only just recognize in the long run, and when it's maybe definitely not too late, because there's always a chance to just move your job, move to somewhere else, just get another job and whatsoever. But I hope I just ended the sentence. So all good things must come to an end. From the day you start, you need to plan your exit. Reverse engineering it. This was always the fucking word that I'm searching. Reverse engineering it. Being like, okay, where do I want to go? What is my goal? And then actually reverse engineer it to the really second that you're staying, or that you're having right now. That you're actually able to do something in this second right now that will contribute your way to your goal in the long run. Which might be, if you want to be rich, and this just really has to be something that can be measured and can be broken down and can be calculated. Something like, I really want to be, or really want to have $1 million in my bank account, which is, I'm sorry if you're just hearing this for the third, for the fourth, for the fifth time, but I'm always making the same example. But if just really willing to be just a really rich person, and you might want 2 billion, let's say 1 billion, $1 billion in your bank account by the end of the next year, which is totally a big goal. I'm not saying that it is impossible. It's definitely possible, but definitely possible. But you then can just, reverse engineer it, which means that you can just calculate what you do have to earn in a year, that you actually can earn this 2 million or 2 billion actually in 2 years, and what you have to earn in a month, and what you have to earn in a week, and then in a day, and then in your hour. And then you can definitely decide what job you want to do, what jobs do you want to do, and whatsoever. You can really just break it down, just see what you have to do, what you want to do, to really get to this goal. Being an entrepreneur is not about taking risks, or not about taking risk. It's about eliminating all risks. Being an entrepreneur or having multiple sources of income is ultimately safer than having a job, but only if you use a job to get rid of all the risks. Just being an entrepreneur without having multiple sources of income, without first taking care of the risks, is suicide. People will not remember what you said, they will remember how you made them feel. And it's definitely true, and I think this is definitely the thing that's going on in advertising as well. So nowadays it's definitely not about the product you're selling, but rather about the feelings and also experiences that you're actually selling, and that these certain products or the food or whatever it is will bring to the end customer or to your customer. The only thing you have control over is your mindset. Your habits and the choices you make internally about how you're going to deal with a situation. And it's totally true, and there's always two sides you can choose, rather the positive one or the negative one, maybe even the neutral one. It always depends, I think. Maybe there's I think often it's just black and white, but if you're just thinking about it and whatsoever, you can definitely see something gray in it as well. You cannot help others choose themselves until you have chosen yourself to be healthy, to be free from the gatekeepers, to have a life of freedom. This is actually, something that I'm honestly quite thinking about pretty often. Is it really like you have to be just this and that first, that you can actually help other people? Do you really have to be healthy yourself to help other people? Maybe it is even the exact same thing that I was talking about in the really beginning of the episode, which is that I'm actually always just looking at the net worth that all the people that I'm reading something of are having. Because I'm kind of, I'm quite thinking that if the net worth is really high, the advices may be valuable and or just really valuable compared to someone who is just not that rich. If it's in terms of business and money and whatsoever, it does totally make sense. But it would also make sense to be like, okay, why would I teach someone to be healthy, to not be overweight, to be in great shape if I'm not myself? But I do just know, and I hope I'm right, that there's actually a personal trainer out there, which is I think a woman, or who is actually a woman, and she's actually overweight, but she still has a lot of clients. The thing is, I think if you're just really able to just give the value that you're actually just promising to the people, if you can really give it to them, then why just do you have to be what you're teaching? You don't have to. As long as you're just making it happen for the people you're working for or for your clients, then everything is good, or isn't it? But maybe it would definitely get a little bit harder. It is definitely a little bit harder as an overweight personal trainer to actually, get clients. But so when you lose money, it's because you might have done something incorrectly. This is feedback you can use to make more money. And when you make more money, this is feedback that you are doing good things. And that's totally true. That's totally true. Because a lot of people, which is something that it's not bothering me, but I do not quite understand why people think about it so negatively, which is failing. Failing, at my point of view, is definitely something that's not that bad, as all the people are always telling you. What school definitely is telling you, what your parents maybe are telling you. Failing is something great. Failing is great as long as you're not doing it just really synthetical, like you're just really doing it consciously, which is totally then really fucked up, and you should please never do that. Do not fuck up. Do not just make failure. Do not fail, or do not just make mistakes only because you think like, okay, making mistakes is great. I want to make the mistakes because then I will just learn something from it. I think it's only happening if you're just really failing because you did just something dumb. You did just not think enough and whatsoever. And then you can definitely learn from your failures, from the things that you just lost, the things you just, didn't do that well. But you can also just, really kind of learn from the good things that happen to you. The rich employee creates as much value she has credit to spare and can easily just outright give it to others. So the rich employee creates so much value that he or she has credit to spare and can easily just outright give it to others as well. Totally makes sense. I do really believe in giving value, but still I have to say, and I will always say that when I'm talking about value is something subjective. Value means not like giving knowledge to somebody. It's not like meaning that you're actually kind of giving somebody a book, that you're just giving somebody music. It could be definitely about knowledge, but it could also be about being entertained. It could also be about just kind of escapism. There are a lot of factors and a lot of ways I think value is kind of the facets of value. Ideas are not quite a dime a dozen. They are a dime for 3 or 4. The rich employee must become a leader. And if you are a leader of less than 30 people, you have to know immediately the problems of all 30 people or less in your organization. Because, and this is also a point at which, no, not also a point, but again a point that quite validates the kind of message or the kind of saying that you are actually, as a boss, as a leader, as a whatever, are working for your employees and not vice versa. Because you actually have to be sure that the people are doing well in your company. You have to be sure that the people are working well in your company. You have to be sure that the people are healthy in your company, and so on, and so on, and so on. Maybe just because of the sake of the company itself, and maybe not more about the people, but this is another topic, I think. Leadership is not about achieving your dream, it's about helping everyone else achieve their dreams. Actually, always a good saying, and this is definitely something that Seth Godin, the pretty famous marketing guy, can I say this? He's also writing a lot of books, so therefore marketing alone won't be just the best kind of description for him. But what did I actually say? So leadership is not about achieving your dreams, it's about helping everyone else achieve their dreams. I do not particularly think that this has something to do with being a leader, but rather with being just successful. Because I do just really think that the people that are really successful, they just solve a problem. They just solve some things that piss people off and that might be even pissing them off. This is then the reason why they are so wealthy. If you don't give yourself permission to create a new world, chances are nobody else will. Totally. Do something today that tomorrow people will say is great. And this is quite the thing that I'm just talking about when I'm talking about legacy. It's about being nice to the people. It's about doing something that you might be just really proud of in the long run. And you might just like it or love it. You just really love it and like it in the long run. And you should be proud of yourself that you actually did it. Therefore, just not doing some things and not just working on some things that you could not be proud of in the long run. You can only make a difference in your life when you stand out and when you aren't afraid to go beyond the fringe. Totally. There are a lot of people who are just working, and they just achieve a lot of things. Why? Because they're doing just what all the other peoples are not doing. And though, a lot of people just then think like, okay, why am I so poor? Why do all these people have so much money and whatever? But most often they don't see how much they did work for it before it. Or just in the very, very past. And yeah. Which is quite the last one. You have to remember your experiences, study your failures, try to note what you did right and what you did wrong, and remember them for future experiences. Why? Because I think it is important, because if you're just doing then the whole or the same mistakes every single time again and again and again, yeah, it's not good. It's definitely not good, because you would just fuck a lot of time, you would just fuck a lot of energy, you might even just fuck with your whole company and with your whole dream, because you're thinking like, I'm always doing it wrong, why can't I do it in a correct way? maybe this some kind of prevents you from actually being at your greatest as well. So therefore, just note down what you did good. I'm actually not doing it, but I think it could work. And I will just never ever just suggest some things that I think aren't working. They do not have to be necessarily things that I'm doing as well. Maybe I'm thinking about it. Definitely think about it. But yeah, I will just suggest things that I think are just great and they could work. And yeah. So this was actually it with this summary. Actually quite a great summary, I think. Quite a great summary. With a lot of great insights, with a lot of... Still, I do just remember, sorry for putting that away, something that was never ever just named into the whole summary. Only I think one time was become an entrepreneur, which is, I think, something that could turn out pretty great. If you're working on something, but besides your work, like your normal 9-to-5 job, doing something besides that could really fucking put you on. And really fucking put you on until you actually can leave the job you're working on, that you can actually work on this business you built over the years, just really full time. This is, I think, a great strategy. Just really, first of all, being an entrepreneur or actually being an employee the first times. And I think this is actually what I will do. I will definitely just go to a lot of companies and try to go to a lot of companies and work there and just see what it's like, what I actually like, if it's really what I'm going to do or what I want to do. And maybe afterwards, after some years, I come to the conclusion that I want to study something, and then I will just study something. But the problem is, a lot of people just study or go to university right ahead and right after school. I'm not quite sure if this is something, that's too great, or if it's just something that just all the people are doing and therefore even more people are doing it. But I don't know, it's some kind of complicated. Because the problem is, just right after you've kind of graduated, you're so young and you have so much energy and you have so many abilities, especially also because you're living at your parents' home as well. This is totally something that's then about the money, that you actually don't have to spend extra money to just really, exist quite. Which then really just is great for actually trying out a lot of things. And for me, going to university straight isn't just trying out things. Because you're young, because you have the energy, and you could just try out a lot of things and you won't lose that much money because you're living at your parents' home, and so on and so on. But yeah, this is it with the episode. I hope you liked the outro, the vice versa intro, whatever it is called. I hope you liked it actually, and I hope this was a great episode for you. I hope you just learned a lot of things. I hope you got something like value out of it, and yeah, I hope you're just thinking about your legacy and about giving back to the people as well. And if there's something you want to tell me, just really hit me up on all the social media links and or social media platforms you're most convenient with. I could actually put them here anywhere, and actually in the intro as well. But yeah. So with that being said, I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day and or night. Depends on your, depends definitely on your time zone. And yeah, with that being said, I'll see you tomorrow, hopefully. And I wish you the best health, wealth, happiness, and love. Health, wealth, happiness, love, and success, actually. With that being said, I'll see you tomorrow.